welcome to another Kilroy's Deep Dive. It's been a while since I've done an official, actual deep dive, and if you recall, because I know you're following along, my whole purpose of doing the deep dive is trying to recreate that whole Powers of 10 video back from my childhood and maybe yours, or maybe that predates you, where you kind of went down into a closer view of a situation by scale. And I'll put a link to my original introduction video to my deep dives, along with a video I did about scale, about military scale, which actually was nominated for a Charles S. Roberts Award, but alas, did not win. Anyway, my primary purpose of doing deep dives is to do just that, to start at a high level and kind of take a little bit more of a detailed look as we go down and get to a more granular level of the conflict, down to maybe even individual combat. And so what I'm planning on doing today is doing a deep dive for D-Day games. Now, this isn't all the D-Day games I have, and I'm not going to cover all the D-Day games that are out there. However, I'm going to cover the ones that I think are somewhat relevant to scale and give you a different perspective and a different look as we go down into the rabbit hole. So among some of these games that I'll be covering, is 1944, D-Day to the Rhine, or D-Day to the Rhine 1944, which is, I think, the way it's called on Board Game Geek. The Mighty Endeavor, Normandy 44, of course, Axis and Allies D-Day. We have to have an Axis and Allies game in here somewhere. D-Day Omaha Beach. How could I miss that one? Panzerleader. This is the one that got me started. This was my first ever D-Day game. First game I ever bought. Advanced Squad Leader, or some squad level game, which also includes Last 100 Yards over here. And D-Day Dice. Why do I have D-Day Dice in there? Well, because it has D-Day in the title, and it is a different perspective and a different way of looking at D-Day. So with that, let's start our journey downward. So let's start at the highest level, or at least the highest level that I want to start at, and that is Rise and Decline of the Third Reich. Now, this was the very first strategic level World War II game, or actually strategic level war game that I ever played, if you don't count Risk. And was the first game that I ever attempted an amphibious landing. Now, it wasn't the Normandy landing. It was down here. I tried to do the old Gallipoli landing, but in World War II. I was just a little bit late on that. But Third Reich actually has rules on amphibious assault, and actually has a 1944 scenario, so that you can recreate the Allies' invasion of the beaches that are right up here in Normandy. Now, this is at the highest level because this is, again, a strategic level game, and actually is kind of at the army level, or very high level of units that are engaged in combat. So it really doesn't give, unless you're playing that scenario, or unless your game happens to play out like history, you may not actually get the D-Day landings, or have a scenario focused on that. But you can, and so that's why I decided to include this one. Next up is D-Day to the Rhine, 1944, or should I say next down in level. This game is what it says it is. It is D-Day to the Rhine. Now, the emphasis on D-Day, you have the landing beaches up here, and the game starts off with the landing, but that is not the emphasis of the game. There is a landing component to this game, but most of the game is played over here. It's getting inland and getting over to the Rhine. And so that's where the heart of this game lies. But it does, you do have the landings, and you do have some German defense up there. but most of this game is going to be played in this area and getting over into the Rhine, if you want to try to win, that is. Interesting aspects about this game, it's from Worthington. It's a very nice production mounted map, nice thick counters, pre-rounded. It has kind of a block game feel, but with counters, and it also has special dice that you roll, and you have to roll the symbols to get the hit. Kind of feels a little bit like Command and Colors that way. But so it's got some unique feel and mechanics in it. It also has some alternate scenarios that you can play, and so you can kind of play a hidden scenario so that the other side doesn't know exactly what you're trying to do here. Single thrust, broad front, or objective roar. You can pick one of these out, and it has different victory conditions on it, as opposed to just the standard victory conditions that come with the game. So this is, this is probably more at the core level, down from Third Reich. We're getting a little bit more granular here, but not that much. You've got some big units moving across the board. So that is what I have for the next level, which is D-Day to the Rhine, 1944. So the next level down is the Mighty Endeavor from Multi-Man Publishing. Just a note here, if you're keeping score at home, the first game I covered was The Rise and Decline of the Third Reich. That is an Avalon Hill game, if you didn't know that. Avalon Hill. So we've done Avalon Hill, Worthington, now Multi-Man Publishing. Now this is a part of the Standard Combat series, which is a very two varies there, accessible game. The rule set is not that complex. In fact, it has a standard series set of rules, which this is 1.7 and is only 8 pages long, and that's with designer notes. So you're talking, 7 pages long, triple column, so a little bit of text there, but still 7 pages, people. And then, of course, it's going to have the larger set of rules, or an additional set of rules for each specific game in the series. There are a lot of games in the Standard Combat series. I've done some plays on that, or some videos on that. Take a look at my playlist under SCS. Now, what is the unique thing about the Mighty Endeavor? Well, it covers the D-Day landings, and you have them right up there at the top here, right across the English Channel there. But it also goes all the way into the Rhine, like the last game we covered, and it also has a whole nother map that I don't have out here that covers the Eastern Front. And so basically this is a kind of a two-player, you're playing it two-handed, right? The Allied player on the Western Front will play the Axis player on the Eastern Front, and the Axis and the Allied player on the Eastern Front, Russia, will play the Axis player on the Western Front. Did I get that right? I don't know. So you're playing two games or two sides. You're having to split your brain and become a little bipolar, but it is a very interesting mechanism. So that's the full game of the Mighty Endeavor, which it covers, from D-Day to basically the end of the war and the race to Berlin. But it does cover, the D-Day landings in some respect, probably about the same scale. Well, this is more core and division level, so it does kind of cover some of the same aspects of D-Day to the Rhine. But I think with the SCS system, I find that this is just a little bit more granular and a little bit more meatier on the rules. You also have this nice little map here for Cherbourg and Brest out there, the little peninsula going out there. Anyway, so that is the next level down, the Mighty Endeavor. The next level down is what I've been covering all week. In fact, this is kind of a spoiler alert because you'll see this final package at the end of the week. But this is a 5 for Fighting. This is a set of postcard games put out by LPS, which usually comes along with Against the Odds magazine or sometimes Turning Point Simulations. And that is what I've been covering on my Coffee with Kilroy. Each of the different beaches from Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. This is roughly at the brigade level, and you can get counters on a sheet. This came as a package, a 5 for Fighting all together, but you also have counters on each of the individual postcards. And there are rules to play them all together, but I'm saving that for the end of the week. So there you have it. This is kind of a little bit further in, at kind of more at the brigade level, as I roughly kind of break out some of these units into the way they're portrayed on both the cards and on the counters. And this is a very simple card activation. You're going to have a standard deck of cards, and based on what you pull tells how many activations and who activates, and the cards will also be used in the combat along with terrain modifiers that are on the bottom of the postcards, and you actually have the rules on the back for each of the different beaches. So that is the next level down. Next level down is Normandy 44. This is a game designed by Mark Simonich, published by GMT Games, and is part of the 4X or Zockbond or whatever you want to call it game mechanism. It's really not a series because each game is somewhat different than the other, but they do share some common mechanics. Most notably is the Zockbond system on how the zone of control is played out, and they're all in the 40s. They're all dealing with World War II, and there are several in this series. This one is covering D-Day and the Battle of Normandy, 6 to 27 June 1944. And I have to say that if I had to pick one D-Day game that I wanted to get a good representation of D-Day and give me, all the different perspectives at a accessible level as far as the rules and the mechanics, this probably would be my sweet spot. It's kind of in the middle here. It's not too high a scale that you're just getting. You're just moving big units and not really feeling what the engagements and the actions are and what the challenges are. And it's not too into the weeds where you're dealing with squads and platoons where you don't really you're really not getting a full view of what's going on as far as the entire battle or the entire campaign. This is generally at the regiment and battalion level, and so you're really kind of at a sweet spot here in looking at what took place on D-Day. The maps are very nice. They're very clear, and you can understand what the terrain is and where the road networks are and all the other stuff here. And plus you also have all the beaches and the holding boxes for the landings. And so each of the 4X or Zockbond type games are going to have unique rules that are specific to their environment. So this game is really going to deal with amphibious landings and trying to break out from the beach. So this is really focused on that. If you look at some of the other ones, like Holland 44, which deals with Market Garden, that's dealing with paradrops. I mean, there's some paradrops in here as well, but that one is really dealing with the paradrops and trying to trek down a very long road. Ardennes 44, which kind of deals with the Battle of the Bulge, that's dealing with dense woods and roadblocks and traffic jams and the like. So each of the systems have their unique rules that deal with the challenges of that situation, and this one I think does Normandy and D-Day very well. For my next layer down, I have Axis and Allies D-Day. Wait. Where you going? Where you going? Come back here. Yes, there is a reason to have this on the list. This actually, it's kind of loosely, I don't really have a straight scale for it, but I kind of estimated this more at the battalion scale based on the number of units that are at the landing beach or the way they do the divisions. But you are talking about little plastic men. This is Axis and Allies, isn't it? You've got to have little plastic bits. But don't let that fool you. There is actually an interesting game here. I broke this out on D-Day. It's been maybe at least 3, maybe 4 years now, and played this with my youngest daughter, and we had a great time. We really enjoyed playing this, and she really learned how to play this. This wasn't necessarily her first war game, but pretty close to being her first war game. And she really had a good time with it, and we really learned some lessons that you can apply to other war games. Now, this is, as I said, you have these units are going to be represented of your forces, and it does use the Axis and Allies kind of bucket of dice system where you're rolling dice and trying to get hits and eliminating units. But the units have different factors based on whether they're infantry, artillery, or armor units. And the Allies have to get certain locations like Caen and St. Lo and Cherbourg, I think. And the Germans have to hold out for a certain number of turns to do that. And so it looks somewhat basic, but there's actually an interesting game here. Now, for the crusty grognard, probably, the little plastic toys are probably going to turn you off right away, if not the area control and the bucket of dice. Need I say more? But there's actually kind of a little fun game in here. I wasn't a big Axis and Allies player or fan. I got into it. It came out right as I was going off to college and distracted by other things, and so I really didn't get into Axis and Allies till later in life. And I like it for what it is, but it's, once you've seen the chrome of a hex encounter, then it's hard to kind of go back. But there is a place for this, and this place is not only as kind of an intro game or entry game or beginner game, but there's also it's kind of fun just to throw some dice sometimes and see how things go, and you can learn some tactics and some basic elements of not leaving your flank open and where you concentrate your forces and trying to put a plan together. So that is the next on my list, which is Axis and Allies D-Day. So that concludes our first leg of our journey. As I was doing this deep dive and trying to keep things short and sweet and succinct, I realized that I was saying a lot and had a lot of games to talk about. So I decided to break this up into 3 sections. So this is the end of the first part of Kilroy's deep dive on D-Day games. Stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for watching.